Hereby call the Student Fees Commission to order at 9:31 a.m. Advisor Fonseca, please proceed with official roll call to establish a quorum.
Treasurer Bum,
Present.
Vice President Nguyen,
Present.
Speaker Fan,
Present.
Government Oversight Chair Tijuana,
Present.
International Commissioner Argumedo,
Present.
Underserved Commissioner Wong,
Present.
Engineering Commissioner Nyandaro,
Present.
Freshman Commissioner Naylor,
Present.
Health Professions Commissioner Payne,
Present.
Out-of-State Commissioner Beatty,
Present.
Adult Learners Commissioner Runquist.
Present.
There are 11 student members present, 10 of which are voting. Simple majority will be 6.
Thank you, Advisor Fonseca. Please proceed with opening business.
All right. Hello, everybody. Good morning. Happy Thursday, and hopefully final day of this process. Just a couple of things at the top of the agenda before we head into opening statements that I want to kind of highlight. So I mentioned yesterday that there's a document inside the teams. It's currently called the Student Fees Carry Forward FY26. Traditionally during this process, the Budget Office produces this report that highlights what the carry forward is. Carry forward is defined as unspent dollars that student fee entities transition from year to year, whether that be student fee dollars or other RU sources. There's currently a clause in the student fee statute that allows student fee entities to maintain no more than 10% of their allocation within their carry forward. It's also important to know as you read this document, this was as of July 1st, 2025. I'd imagine that a number of these numbers are different today, being several months later. So when we get to the point of conversations relating to cash sweeps or dealing with reserves, if you have a specific one that you want the Budget Office to pull, they can pull the current balance at that point. Give them some time to do it because it is a little complicated to pull, but they're happy to do that. I'm speaking for them, but I'm sure they're happy to do that. Yep, they should give me a thumbs up. So that is that document in there. The other one, will you go to the other spreadsheet? And kind of how today will work. As you all go through line items, we're going to start at the top of this spreadsheet that you all have a copy of as well in your team, but the one in your team is not going to be the official one, so don't use that. Yeah, the big one. So this is where we will be keeping track of whatever decisions you all are making. So the way that this is going to work, and we'll just use the example with debate, on column T shows their requests for 2027. So this is what they submitted in their packet. And let's say that someone wants to make a motion that they get funded $20,000. So they'll then add $20,000 on there, and it will start then collecting the rest of the formulas that are designed in this process. We'll do that through every single line item. Ultimately, when we are done with every single line item, that number in the top will either be the number we want it to be, or it will be more than what we currently have in revenue estimates. And then that's when you'll have conversations about either if you're going to make adjustments in other areas or if you're going to propose an increase to the fee in order to balance the budget. As we talked about on Monday, you cannot come out of this process with an unbalanced budget. The same time, you cannot use student fee or student reserves to balance the budget either. The statute prohibits this commission from doing that. You can use reserves to pay for maybe other one-time things or other stuff, but you can't use it to actually balance the budget because the budget itself then won't be balanced. So that is kind of what you'll see. That screen will stay up the whole time as we go through it. As motions are made, please make sure you raise your hand as high as you can, one, so that the camera can see you, but also so that Lauren can make sure that we're writing down your motions correctly. We'll be voting with the clickers that are in front of you. So for those who are in Senate, this should be normal for you. For those who are not, I don't actually know what they look like anymore, I forgot, but the button on top is the other thing. At this point, everyone's questions that were sent out. I have downloaded all of those answers into the spreadsheets or into the teams. I haven't 100% checked to make sure everyone answered their question, but if one comes up that you have a question about, I can double check to see if it's in here, or if we haven't received a response, then we haven't received a response. This is also, as I mentioned yesterday, there's no more opportunities to reach out to folks to get clarifying answers. It is now the information that is either in your book from the presentations or in the additional questions and answers that are to help you make your decisions from here. That might be Lindsay, Michael, anything else from your guys' side? Okay, then that is probably all that I have at this point. So you want to jump to the next thing? Okay.
In compliance with association bylaws, each member, upon recognition, is entitled to offer an opening statement regarding deliberations. Are there any members wishing to present an opening statement? Seeing none, Advisor Fonseca, we are ready to proceed.
Sorry, I lost my notes. You'll jump into your public forum.
Public forum provides a chance for individuals to have the privilege of speaking before the commission, limited to 3 minutes only. This is a time for the commission to listen to what our community has to say. To that, we offer undivided respect and attention. I'd like to remind everyone that though we allow the speakers of privilege to use this platform, the opinions of the speakers do not reflect the opinions of the association. Advisor Fonseca, has anyone requested to speak in public forum?
No.
We are ready to move on.
Pursuant to commission regulations as set by the bylaws, the chair shall entertain motions for allocations of each fund per line. Each motion must be seconded, and the original commissioner to offer the motion shall have the chance to speak first. The chair will then proceed member by member who wishes to speak on the motion. A reminder that the commission that amendments may not be made to a motion. Each motion must be voted on or retracted by the member, and no friendly amendments are accepted. Finally, each line item is limited to no more than 30 minutes of debate. However, a motion may be made for extension of debate by a simple majority. After each vote must be taken, and there are no unanimous consents allowed.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, Advisor Fonseca, we are ready to proceed.
The first line item is debate. They requested $25,000, and they are located on tab Q.
Before we go into debate, I have a budget provision that I would like to propose. I move to create a budget provision stating that every student fee entity has to create a separate fund to hold all student fee dollars allocated each year. I further move that the central office produces a yearly report to verify compliance with this action. This first one will be due no later than August 1st, 2026. Finally, I move that the central office creates policy to embed this line into the budget and finance code of SGA bylaws. And this motion should exempt the Radigan Student Center due to the uniqueness of their 501c3. Do I have a second? Seconded by Speaker Fawn. The reason for this is due to, after reviewing all of the hearings, presentations, and financials of all of our entities this year, I myself and some other commissioners have realized that the funds that we are allocating are being hard to track throughout the year. We're seeing funds being transferred across campus to certain other entities. We're unaware of certain revenues that are coming in and what they're replacing those student fees with. So these provisions are to enable the next Student Fee Commission for years to come to be able to better accurately make decisions based on the student fee dollars that have been allocated. Would anyone else like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll move into the the voting period for this item. All those in favor?
Oh, we'll do the clicker.
Okay. Please, I don't know what to say for that.
You'll just say that that we're ready to vote, and then I'll announce that the vote is
Okay,
open.
we are ready to move into the voting period.
The vote is now open.
Point of order. Are our clickers on?
Yep. You should just hit a button.
Oh.
With 10 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstentions, the motion carries. You ready to go back to debate now? Okay.
Yes.
All right, so we're back to debate. Again, they requested $25,000, and they are located on tab Q of the student fees binder.
Speaker Fun.
I have a point of clarification for the central office. So with our bylaw changes that we passed in SB-68-144 for the non-discrimination clause for our SJ scholarships, it says that no scholarship applicant will be excluded from consideration, and no scholarship recipient will be chosen on the basis of age, ancestry, color, disability, gender expression, gender identity, genetic information, marital status, national origin, political affiliation, pregnancy, race, religion, sex, sexual orientation, or status as a veteran. So does that apply to our ELF scholarships? And if so, which ones would it directly affect with those changes? Additionally, to add on to that point of clarification, with our changes to the ELF funds, where in Section 3, subsection C, subsection 2, it changed the language from originally it read, need-based grants including awards to students with special expenses, such as child care or groups of students who have been historically represented in higher education, and it struck out such as child care or groups of students who have been historically underrepresented in higher education, how that would be affected as well. I know that was a lot of items.
Great question. And if I don't get it all right, let me know if I missed something. So yes, the language does apply to any scholarship across that are funded by student government. I think which ones in the pool that would apply to, haven't spent some time looking at that, so I'd probably encourage that if there are ones that you would think they apply to, that we table that to give me a second to review that and provide you advice on that. But to your original question, yes, it would apply to any of our scholarships, including anything that's funded by EOF, because our bylaws, student fee dollars and EOF dollars have to comply with the bylaws as well. But I would, to my earlier point, if there are ones that you believe come to that point, once that comes up, once that line item comes up, I'd recommend that we table that conversation so that it gives me some time to review that and get you some better advice on that at some point today as well. Does that answer maybe potentially some of your question?
Speaker Fun.
Does answer a lot of the questions I had. To add as a follow-up question, when it says need-based, the new language, current language says need-based grants, including awards to students with special expenses. What is the central office's interpretation of special expenses?
That's a great question.
Speaker Fun.
I move to allocate $0.
Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Wong. Would you like to speak on that?
Yes, so I made this motion to allocate $0 for a couple reasons. I believe that as we evaluate some of our ELF funds and even our student support services funds, one thing that I'm looking at when I'm evaluating these different line items are the range that it has to support students, the impact that it has on all of our students on campus as well. Additionally, I believe with the debate scholarship ELF fund, it only funded several of their graduate teaching assistants on their team as well. And I personally would like to see it support a lot more of their undergraduate students that are serving on their team a lot more. I think it's the responsibility of the college or department it falls under to support the graduate teaching assistants as well. And I also believe that within the budget presentation, I wasn't quite satisfied with a lot of the points that they brought up on items you need assistance with the scholarships. I think the scholarship application for me, I think there needs to be, in my mind, a more structured process on how it's selected, or a more separate process as opposed to just a couple coaches or assistant coaches helping out with that process as well. I think as we go along as well, I don't believe that I can personally justify giving $25,000 to support 3 or 4 students for that specific scholarship, when so many of our other scholarships can support a much wider range of students on our campus, while also not requiring that you have at least some experience in debate or some experience in that area as well.
Thank you. I will also speak in affirmation of this motion. This entity, looking at their financials, did receive money from the foundation for the past couple of fiscal years. And this amount of money allocated through the foundation was greater than the student fee allocation. So I think that if they continue to receive these funds, they still will be able to operate with some of the scholarships that they're wanting to have. Anyone else like to speak on this motion? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. With 8 in favor, 1 against, and 1 abstention, the motion carries. You ready for the next one? Okay. The next line item is the Disability Support Services. They requested $8,000, and they're located on tab D.
Speaker Fawn.
This is one of the scholarships that I'm concerned with the bylaws and the central office's interpretation. So I move to table this until the central office can render an advisory opinion regarding the application of our bylaws to the scholarship.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Vice President Nguyen. Would you like to add any?
Yes, so within our bylaws, like what I mentioned a little bit earlier, one section states that no scholarship application will be excluded consideration with a couple different reasons, and disability is one of them. So I want to ensure that there's no conflict within our bylaws for that item.
Would anybody else like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll move. Oh, Commissioner Argumento.
I guess this is like a point of information. Just to clarify on the bylaw. So if it doesn't, it was stricken out child care and disability. So any of the scholarships that include disability would be in kind of violation of the bylaws, because technically anybody should be able to apply for it.
This is about the tabling of this item, so we're waiting on clarification from central office before we make any decisions. So seeing no other thoughts, we'll move into the voting period for the tabling of this item.
The vote is now open. With 9 in favor, 0 against, 1 abstention, the motion carries. The next line item is the Graduate Student Scholarship Program. They requested $9,000, and they're located on tab T.
Commissioner Wong.
I'd like to move to allocate them their fiscal 2027 request of $9,000.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Argumento. Would you like to speak on that?
Yes, I think historically and even to this day, the feedback that we receive from graduate students is that their scholarship opportunities are limited, as well as the resources and support services that they have currently in place. And so keeping this $9,000 would directly go back to graduate students to support them through their education.
Would anyone else like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. With 9 in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstention, the motion carries. The next fund is the McNair Graduate Student Scholarship. They requested $8,000. They're also located on tab T.
Commissioner Argumedo.
I motion to approve their fiscal year 2027 budget of $8,000.
Do I have a second? Sent by Vice President Nguyen. Would you like to speak on that?
Just kind of like the mentioned before, we've had great feedback about the scholarship, and I just want to continue to support them.
Any other thoughts? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. With 9 in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstention, the motion carries. The next fund is the HALA Scholarship for Community Service. They requested $15,000, and they're located on tab K.
Commissioner Argumedo.
Yes, I motion to approve their budget of $15,000.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Wong. Would you like to speak on that?
Yeah, sure. Historically, this is a great scholarship, and it really gets our students out there in the community, encourages community service, and they've been doing great work for the last couple years.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on this motion? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. With 8 in favor, 0 against, and 2 abstention, the motion carries. The next request is the EOF First Generation Scholarship. They requested $50,000, and they're located on tab C. And before we continue, if I could ask folks to bring your mics closer to you so that we could hear you a little bit better, that would be great.
I didn't know.
Commissioner Argumedo.
I motion to approve $40,000 of their student fee request.
Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Nyandaro. Would you like to speak on that?
Yeah, so in this past fiscal year, due to the reductions they had, due to the budget reductions of last year, they had to stop funding 10 students. And I just kind of want to get them back towards their original number that they used to have. And yeah.
Any other thoughts on this motion? Commissioner Wong.
Point of order. What was the reasoning for last year's decrease for this scholarship?
I believe it was because they had unallocated scholarships. But I will have to go back to the minutes to find it. But that is my understanding, if I could remember, that there was still money left over that weren't allocated.
Commissioner Argumedo.
To add on to adding on to President Wang's, right now they have no remaining funds, so they've used up all their scholarship money. So this is the year.
Anybody else like to speak on this?
Just to clarify, to make sure I got it right, you said $40,000, correct? Okay.
Commissioner Tijuana.
Substitute motion to table it till we get further clarification on this motion.
So you can't do substitutes, so either the original motion has to be retracted or this one has to fail and a new one has to be reintroduced.
Commissioner Argumento.
I'm okay with retracting it. I motion to retract my motion. Is that?
Commissioner Nindaro, do you second that retraction? Commissioner Tijuana.
Motion to table this till we have further clarification from advisors.
A second. Second by Commissioner Argumento. Would you like to speak on that?
I think we'll just wait on the 10,000 allocated amount if it was spent or not. So just wait on the clarification, then we can make a new motion.
And there any other thoughts on the tabling of this item? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. Amy, we're missing your vote. With 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions, the motion carries. The next one, by the way, we are skipping the SJA scholarships because the commission can't change that. So we're moving on to the Promoting Academic Student Success Scholarship or EOF account. Their request is for $30,000. They're located on tab A.
Commissioner Wong.
I'd like to motion to allocate $30,000.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Naylor. Would you like to speak on that?
Yes. I would like to fund them at their request. This program continually engages and supports first-year students, not just transitioning into student life and engagement on this campus, but also within the title of academic success.
Are there any thoughts? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. With 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstentions, the motion carries. The next fund is the Non-Traditional Student Scholarship, requesting $30,000 located on tab C.
Speaker Fawn.
I move to table this item until we receive further clarification on if this scholarship is in compliance with our bylaws.
Seconded by Commissioner Beatty. Would you like to speak on that?
Yes, so the item that I'm concerned about, it says no scholarship application will be excluded from consideration on the basis of age for one item. And within the scholarships, since non-traditional students are defined as students who are over 24 years of age.
Would anybody else like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. With 9 in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstention, the motion carries. We are now on the International Scholarship Fund for Study Abroad. Their request is for $10,000. They're located on tab B.
Vice President Nguyen.
I move to allocate the full 10,000 amount.
Seconded by Commissioner Argumento. Would you like to speak on that?
Yes, so the Study Abroad Scholarship provides students the opportunity to go abroad, and I think it's a great opportunity for students who demonstrate some financial need to help them gain this experience for their college career.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on this? Commissioner Nindaro.
Just to add on that, I think they're really good scholarship fund because they help a lot of colleges, especially the College of Engineering. Like one of their requirements for Engineering Plus is to study abroad, so they give students that opportunity.
Any other thoughts on this motion? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. With 10 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstention, the motion carries. We're We're now on the esports EOF. The request was for $25,000. They're located on tab N.
Speaker Fawn.
I move to allocate $0.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Wong. Would you like to speak on that?
Yeah, so I think kind of similar to my thoughts on the debate team, I don't think that I can justify allocating student fee dollars towards esports for their items. While I am more amenable to conversation about the scholarship, I think for the amount of students that it impacts on campus, doesn't justify it for me for some of the other services and scholarships that we have as well. Additionally, it's a lot more restrictive on who can apply for the esports scholarship, as well as they have to be able to compete within their team. And you have to have at least some basis of skills for the esports scholarship, I would say, to a degree. That's why I motioned to allocate $0 for it as well.
Thank you. I will also stand in affirmation of that $0 amount. I think esports is a great entity. However, student fee dollars just aren't justified to be able to fund these types of very specific scholarships. I think of it more on kind of the level of the dance or the cheer team, where they are being supported by another department. However, they still do work very hard to fundraise, to be able to travel, to afford some of their gear, different things like that. As for the scholarship standpoint, I hope that they can reach out to their department or the foundation for any funds to be able to continue those recruiting efforts. Are there any other thoughts on this? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. With 6 in favor, 2 against, and 2 abstentions, a motion carries. We're now on the Ulrich Museum for their EOF fund of $8,500. They're located on tab I.
Vice President Nguyen.
I move to allocate 8,500.
Seconded by Commissioner Pang. Would you like to speak on that?
Yeah, so with the additional 3,500, it'll help them continue to offer the 5 internships with the rate of $14 an hour to help sustain the program.
Anybody else like to speak on this item? Commissioner Argumento.
I'm going to speak in affirmation. Ulrich Museum has done great work in the past with the budget that we've given them. They continue to do great work, and they offer great services to the entire student body.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on this motion? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. With 10 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstentions, a motion carries. Do you want to pause here to give me a chance to look at what Speaker Fawn is mentioning, or do you want to continue?
Yes, please. We'll
Okay.
pause here.
Can you put us on recess?
We'll be on a 5-minute recess until 10:10 a.m.
Matthew, you come here.
Call this meeting back to order at 10:10 a.m. We will stand on recess for another 5 minutes until 10:15 a.m. I call this meeting back to order at 10:16 a.m. Central Office, would you like to provide some guidance?
Yeah, so to the question regarding the non-traditional student scholarship, the Student Senate did recently adopt new language out of some compliance issues that we needed to address as it relates to how we define our non-discrimination clause as a whole, and then it made changes to the non-discrimination clause for scholarships. Keeping in mind that student fee dollars all have to comply with everything in the student government's bylaws. The new language does say that no scholarship applicant will be excluded from consideration and no scholarship recipient will be chosen on the basis of age, ancestry, color, disability, gender, gender expression, gender identity, genetic information, marital status, or national origin, political affiliation, pregnancy, race, religion, sex, sexual orientation, or status as a veteran. With that language now, I would believe that our non-traditional student scholarship, based off of how they've interpreted it or how they defined it in the binder, so on page 28 in tab C, a non-traditional student is defined as a student who is over 24 years of age as designated for independent status. My recommendation for the time being, because full disclosure, and it is not their fault that these languages, right? The Senate made changes after these packets were submitted. So of course they wouldn't have known some of the changes that were taking place. I would recommend to either fund it with the stipulation that they have to change their language to get in compliance with the bylaws. And if they don't, then the funds won't be released, or to not fund it, and those would be your options. I would not encourage us to go with the option of funding it as is, because by passing that through, potentially could be subjected then to a violation of our own bylaws, which would cause a whole other mess that we don't need to get into, and potentially threaten the entire student fees bill, because we can't just pull one thing at a time. So I would recommend you take either option A of funding it with some provisions that they need to get in compliance with our bylaws, or option B where you don't fund it, would be the only two recommendations I would have for you.
All right, thank you.
And I'll take the other one once we're done with this one.
All right, without objection, we will bring back to the table the non-traditional student scholarship. Do I have a motion? Speaker Fawn.
I move to allocate $25,000 with a stipulation that they will not receive these dollars until they are in compliance with our updated bylaws and statutes.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Beatty. Would you like to speak on that?
Yes, so as Advisor Fonseca just stated, with their current provisions and what they're requesting for, with their definition that non-traditional students are defined as students who are over 24 years of age as designated for independent status on the free application for federal student aid, with the definition for the age items, it is in contrast to our bylaws. So I still want to fund this scholarship. I just believe we just have to add the stipulation. That way we are in compliance with our own bylaws as well. I think with the bylaw, with the scholarship themselves, they do, I really appreciate their efforts in having as many student recipients and the work that they do in assisting students and paying for their tuition as well.
Thank you. Do I have any other thoughts on this? Commissioner Brunquist.
I want to speak in affirmation of what Matthew said. I feel as adult learner commissioner, I should speak on this a little. A lot of non-traditional students don't have as many opportunities for scholarships as regular undergraduate students, so I think that funding this for now with the stipulation of changing their language would be a good idea.
Thank you so much. Any other thoughts on this? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. With 9 in favor, 0 against, 0 abstention, the motion carries.
Central Office, could you please speak on the questions regarding the first generation student scholarship?
I think that one is fine. It's what was the trio disability one? Okay. So the question on the disability support services one, Again, I think based off of our new language, could question that one a little bit. As I read their, the language that they provided in their packet on page 38 in tab D, I interpret it to read that you have to be affiliated with the Disability Support Services program in order to be eligible for the scholarship. Their paragraph of question 1, TRIO Disability Support Services is a federally funded program that serves students with learning, physical, and/or psychological disabilities who may also be first generation and/or limited income undergraduate students. I think that one, again, based off language we have, could come a little more trickier. You could attempt to do the same thing of funding with the stipulation that they get in compliance with the bylaws and provide them that opportunity to do so, or going with the option of not funding it. Again, I would not recommend going with the third option of funding it, because again, then it would cause into question of the overall statute that governs it as well.
All right, thank you. Without objection, we will bring the Disability Support Services Scholarship back to the table. Speaker Fawn.
I move to allocate $0.
Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Naylor. Would you like to speak on that?
Yes, so I think it is unfortunate that we're not able to, in my eyes, we're not able to fund the scholarship. I think what sets it apart for me for the stipulations for the previous scholarship we just reviewed and Disability Support Services is that with the nature of TRIO Disability Support Services, the scholarship requires that it serves students with a learning, physical, and/or psychological disabilities who may also be first generation or limited income undergraduate students. So I find it hard to reconcile the prohibition on requiring the bylaw prohibition restricting that no scholarship applicant will be excluded from consideration, or no scholarship recipient will be chosen on the basis of disability as well. I think it's unfortunate that with these changes, we can't fund the scholarships as is with their current requirements, and it's by no fault of those entities, as well as we made these changes after the fact. But that's why I motioned $0 for that too.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on this item? Commissioner Naylor.
I would also like to speak in affirmation of what Matthew said. I do think that this is unfortunate. However, I think the language that is used will be too difficult to change, and it obviously no issues for them. They had no idea. But I also think the demographic information plays a little bit into it. I wasn't pleased to see that their demographic information came out wrong on 2 of their sections. And so even if they did change their language, I don't know how I would feel about them doing another statistical report about their demographics.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on this motion? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. With 8 in favor, 0 against, and 2 abstentions, the motion carries.
Without objection, I'd also like to bring back the first generation student scholarship to the table.
Thank you. For that one, based off of language, I don't think I have any concern about that ability, since first generation does not fit into one of the areas of our non-discrimination clause.
Commissioner Argumento.
So going back to my original motion of $40,000.
Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Nindaro. Would you like to speak on that?
Yes, so now that we know that's not a violation of our bylaws, we also know, like I mentioned before, they had to reduce the amount of students that they were funding. So, and I would like to get them back to get them back up to more people that they can fund.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on this motion? Commissioner Wong.
Point of order, just to clarify, I wanted to know the reason why the Finance Commission last year cut the funds versus whether or not it was eligible for the bylaws.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's correct. Hold on one second. Let me pull up that file again. So our record does show that it was because there was a balance of unspent money from one year to another, which is why they reduced the dollars to allow them to spend out the dollars in there. I think there was some argument or some conversation last year of if you weren't spending the money that was allocated, then why did we ask for the same amount? So I think that would have been the general just interpreting what I had put in our record at that point.
Thank you. Are there any other thoughts on this? Commissioner Argumento?
What them kind to address that, what they mentioned in their pack is that this year, they did what they were supposed to do. They allocated all their money. They had $0 in reserves. So we're not giving them as much as the year before. We're just giving them so they can fund more students because they've accomplished their goal about allocating all that money.
Any other thoughts? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
As a reminder, you're voting on the $40,000 budget. The vote is now open. With 6 in favor, 1 against, and 3 abstentions, the motion carries. That concludes your Educational Opportunity Fund, so we'll be moving now to the Student Support Services Fund. The first item is Student Engagement and Belonging on tab A. Yep. I'm requesting $1,588,428.
Do I have a motion? Speaker Fawn?
I move to allocate the full requested amount.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Vice President Nguyen. Would you like to speak on that?
Yes, so I did this amount as within their presentation. I think they're justified the increase. They absorb in the past few years, except for the past 5 years, except for 1 year, they absorb a different department or merge with a different department each year. Additionally, they also mentioned within their presentation that they left a position vacant and absorbing those costs for the Director of Student Belonging and Experiences as well. Additionally, some of the programs, due to the reduction from last year, had faced some cuts this year as well. So I appreciated the overview that was provided for that also.
Thank you. Are there any other thoughts on this motion? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. With 9 in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstention, the motion carries. We're now moving to Student Health Services, located on tab M. The request was for $1,166,462.
Commissioner Wong?
Can I get a confirmation of whether or not the student health services utilize student fee dollars to transfer to other student fee entities?
I would probably defer that question to the student affairs representative.
As a person who works closely with the budget, both myself and Emily Zimmerman do work with the director in that office a lot, and I can say any transfers they did not exceed revenue they brought in from outside of student fees. So in other words, the fees they charge students exceeds the amount they might have transferred out. So I think it can reasonably be said that the transfers that they did would have been related to charges for treatment and other things like that versus the student fee dollars they brought in, because I think it can reasonably be said that their salaries would use up all of the student fee dollars.
Commissioner Wong?
Did those transfers result in the about $100,000 deficit in which they needed to request student fee dollars again for $75,000?
Yeah, I think, I assume that was targeted at me, or not given to me, so I didn't mean to jump in without being recognized. So I think it can be reasonable. Any expenses that someone has in their account, whether it be transfers out or whatever, would add overall to shortfall. So I think it could be said, yes, that if they were asked to transfer funds out to another department, whether it's within their business operations team or out to another one, that probably did aid in their overall shortfall. I think there are other things that aid in their shortfall too, such as timeliness of some of their collecting of fees and other things like that.
Thank you. Commissioner Wong?
What does Student Health Services exactly spend student fee dollars on?
Who is that question asked to?
Either the budget office or back to Scott Jensen.
Unfortunately, I can't really give you a clear set answer because there's multiple different revenues within that fund, so we don't tie out specific student fee dollars in and out. It all kind of goes into one aggregate pot, so I can't really give you a clear answer for that one.
Again, I think if the director was here answering that question, I think she would say that as she envisions what that goes to, it would be to staff. The student fee dollars go directly to staff, and then the charges she has for services go towards recouping other expenses, such as the prescriptions and other things like that they have in the office. And again, Emily Zimmerman is helping provide some information for me as well. The other piece that I think she would highlight as well is she's able to provide discounted services to students because she receives fees from you all. So if she wasn't collecting fees from you all, obviously the expenses she would have to charge students would go up in order for her to recoup enough to run that space. So I think it's both and. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Do I have any motions? Commissioner Wong?
I would like to fund Student Health Services at $1,116,462 with the stipulation that they pay back the $75,000 allocated to them in August.
Do I have a second? Sent by Vice President Nguyen. Would you like to speak on that? Sorry, Advisor Fonseca.
Can you repeat that number and stipulation again? I apologize.
$1,116,462 with the stipulation that they pay back $75,000 from August.
All right, would you like to speak on your motion?
Just from the presentation from the wellness areas, as well as the further clarification we just gained, it seems that Student Health Services have not been clear in what they have been spending student fee dollars on, and that to me is very concerning. I believe that when a student fee entity comes to present to the Student Fees Commission, that they should be able to justify every single dollar, every single dime that they have utilized from students to be able to bolster their budget. In addition, the $75,000 was to help with the deficit of Student Health Services. If their student fee dollars went to transfer to other student fee entities, that violates one of our statutes. To me, that is extremely concerning, that other student fee entities have been transferring to other student fee entities. Additionally, that $75,000 was granted in good grace with the trust that they have been good stewards of our finances. To not be able to answer questions as to where that money goes to, what it's funding currently, is, again, as I have been saying, concerning. We should be, as a commission, able to fully see transparently what these dollars are going towards. That is all.
All right, thank you so much. Speaker Fawn?
I will be speaking in affirmation of this motion as well. I agree with the sentiment that was shared regarding the student fee reserves. Earlier this year in our legislative council, we approved $75,000 to student health services. So in my eyes, I think that kind of replenishes or kind of adjusts for the amount that we allocated to them earlier in the year as well. Additionally, I think I agree with several of the sentiments about some of the unclarity within their presentation. I left a lot of questions, and while they clarified some of them in their responses, I'm not confident enough to give them an increase for fiscal year 27. I think Student Health Services does a lot of amazing things for students on campus. I think they provide a lot of great services, but with some of the concerns that we had or heard a little bit earlier, I don't feel comfortable increasing them at this time.
Thank you. Personally, I would like to see the recommended amount reflect that $75,000 reserve sweep for us. I think that allocating the money first to them and then asking for the $75,000 back doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I do agree that we should be seeing that $75,000 back that we did transfer them in good grace, but I would like to see that number being reflected right now for their initial allocation. Commissioner Beatty.
I agree with Chairperson Bohm with that. I feel like if we're stipulating that they pay it back, we should just allocate them the $75,000 less. That's less work for them, less work for us.
Commissioner Naylor.
I agree. If we're already having issues with trust and transparency, then I'd like to speak in affirmation of Chairperson Bohm's reasoning for that. I think that we should just allocate them the $75,000 less. That way we don't have to worry about any confusion getting that back.
Central Office.
The only thing I would caution is a reduction of $75,000 to their FY26 is a permanent reduction for the 2 fiscal years. They will not be back up for 2 years after this. So just putting in perspective that a reduction of their base budget is a permanent reduction for 2 more fiscal years. What I assume the intent from Commissioner Wong is that they find $75,000 somewhere to give back to student government, but it wouldn't reduce their base allocation, is my assumption if I'm interpreting the proposal correctly, but I would caution the sentiment of reducing their base allocation. Now, you can do what you want. I'm just making sure you understand that reduction of 75 to their base allocation is a permanent reduction of their student fees, not a one-time reduction. Your other option, if you choose you want to do that, is to trigger a reduction over time, like we did with the Child Development Center, where it could just be a reduction for 1 year, right? Like there's other options, but if you do it permanently, it will be a reduction for the next 2 years, or a reduction of their base allocation that will go across for 2 more fiscal years. So just keep that in mind as you all finish your conversation around this.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. On that note, I will be seeing an affirmation with Commissioner Wong's motion. Commissioner Wong.
Just to add on, the reason why I did not decrease the allocation from 75,000 is because I would like to have them pay back the $75,000 that we utilize in the student fees reserve to help bolster their fee deficit. But I did not want to remove that from their permanent base allocation from their fiscal year 26 allocation. This is because while we do need to hold student health services accountable, at the end of the day, the people who hurt the most are students. And I would not like to impact students from the services that they have been provided now in a permanent $75,000 decrease.
Thank you. Are there any other thoughts on this motion? Just to review, before we move into the voting period, the motion is for $1,116,462 with the stipulation that Student Health will pay back the $75,000 by August. We'll now move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. With 9 in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstention, the motion carries. We're now moving to the Child Development Center. Their request, and again, I want to clarify on this aspect, not by their choice, by the actions of a previous commission, is a budget of $183,249. They're located on tab E. And just one final thought. This year would be their final year of their 3-year reduction. So do keep that in mind as you proceed.
Speaker Fawn.
I move to allocate the Child Development Center their requested fiscal year 27 amount.
Seconded by Commissioner Beatty. Would you like to speak on that?
Yes, so I think with this amount, I would like us to stay on the 3-year reduction cycle. I don't think we should decrease it anymore. And for their requested amount, I think the Child Development Center, throughout at least my time at SJ, I think we had communication difficulties in communicating different aspects about Child Development Center. I'm hoping in the future we can have further communication to talk about a lot of the concerns that were brought up in previous commissions as well. Additionally, I think there's some work to do in determining how to make the Child Development Center more sustainable for future years and sessions as well. But the Child Development Center does provide a lot of applied learning experiences for students on campus, and I'm, of course, supportive of those applied learning experiences. While, yes, I did have some hesitations initially with some of the questions I had related to the Child Development Center, I am confident that with future sessions we can have that communication, and I hope that we have that future communication, but I think I am most comfortable with the amount that previous commissions recommended based off the $50,000 reduction each year as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Argumento.
This might be a question for Gabe, but can I put in my motion now, or do I have to wait until this motion carries?
We're currently in a motion.
Okay.
Are there any other thoughts on Speaker Fawn's motion? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. With 8 in favor, 0 against, and 2 abstentions, the motion carries.
I'd like to motion. I'd like to motion to reallocate the $50,000 budget reduction from the Child Development Center to establish a scholarship for childcare using the Child Care Development Center. I further move that the executive branch create the scholarship and bring forth a proposal to the Senate to release the funds.
Do I have a second on that? Seeing no second, the motion is not adopted.
The next request is for counseling and psychological services. The request is for $548,084. They're located on tab P.
Commissioner Wong.
I would like to motion for $445,084 with the stipulation that all their counseling services must be free to students.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Commissioner Naylor. Would you like to speak on that?
Yes. I touched a little bit on this whenever they had presented, but I asked the Division of Student Affairs not to move GU funding into RU funds for students to pay. I'm a little disappointed that this even came up in the presentation because I had specifically requested that. Students should not be responsible for GU cuts. Students should be responsible for the services that they would like to see and would like to be provided. Additionally, when I had asked them why we charge students for $10 for each counseling service, they noted that financial, I guess, investment into their own health would help a student, but I have also heard the student feedback that students do not go because the $10 charge is off-putting to them, and they don't know that that's even an option to not receive that charge at all. Additionally, our student fee dollars are already paying for their full-time counselors. I don't understand what really our funds are being used for if not for the counseling of students. That should be free to students.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on this? Commissioner Naylor.
I would like to speak in affirmation of this as well. I believe that without offering these free counseling services to students, we are essentially charging them twice if we are funding their counselors and their salaries. I'm an affirmation of the stipulation specifically because I believe this would be great, especially for incoming freshmen and freshmen in the next 2 years. They live on campus. This is a essential transition for them when they come to Wichita State, and a majority of the people on campus are freshmen, and so this is a priority for my constituents.
Thank you so much. Speaker Fawn.
I will also be speaking in affirmation of this motion. I think with a lot of the concerns that we brought up regarding some of the health services, I think this is a ask that we shouldn't strive for, especially when we provide student fee dollars. Personally, I would like to see a little bit more funding allocated to CAPS if we're making that ask of them. But I will be moving an affirmation of this motion for now.
Thank you. Any final thoughts on this? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
As a reminder, the vote is to fund $445,084 with the stipulation of counseling appointments being free. The vote is now open. With 9 in favor, 0 against, and 1 abstention, the motion carries. We're now moving to Hope Services. Their request was for $31,484. They're located on tab J.
Speaker Fawn.
I move to allocate $0.
Do I have a second? Somebody, Commissioner Wong, would you like to speak on that?
Yes, so I'm motioning to allocate $0 as I think while the work that they do is great, I don't think it serves as wide of an audience of students as some of the other health services do. I also believe that there should be more consolidation of resources for our different services that we have. I think also I think there is some conversation that needs to be had about merging some of these services so that I think with this communication, I think we could avoid all those transfer questions that we had, all the transfer concerns that we had as well. Additionally, they did say when we visited them and within their presentation, that they do receive grants for a lot of community outreach. And personally, I would like to see, I think, more efforts on the student component of things. I believe the community outreach is a really great aspect of it, and I recognize that for the grants, they are more restricted from that end. But I would prefer student fee dollars to go to more specific initiatives for students, like some of our other health services that we have as well.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on this? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. With 5 in favor, 2 against, and 3 abstentions, the motion fails. So that means you're still on Hope Services.
Commissioner Wong.
May I make a comment? I don't necessarily have a motion. I would just like the commission to keep in mind that they do receive $330,000 in grants to help support their initiatives already. I really do think that $30,000 is a drop in the bucket for them.
I would also like to mention, like Speaker Fawn said earlier, he kind of noted that a lot of their services do impact the community as a whole. We would like to see it, maybe impact the campus a little bit more. They did note within their presentation about kind of an odd stat that I saw was their website visits and engagements with some of their media were happening in New York City and also a city in Virginia, which I thought were a little odd to me that they wanted to add that in there. So I do think that a lower amount would be more feasible for them, like Commissioner Wong said, with the amount that they're receiving in grants, as well as kind of the engagement not being quite as high on campus here. Commissioner Nyandaro.
I'd like to comment. I feel like while they get a lot of money from grants, they did mention that they have a lot of restrictions and they cannot do many things using that money. So I feel like we can fund them maybe half of their requests so that they can be able to do things on campus that the grants restrict.
Commissioner Argumento.
I also like to kind of bring up to people's attention that this money is being used to fund prevention ambassadors, which are students here on campus. They're trying to increase the amount of students that they get as prevention ambassadors, and this also money will be going into their NCHA, which is like the assessment they use to survey everything, basically, from what it looks like they're doing. So I just like that to bring to attention, like this money is used to employ more student ambassadors or prevention ambassadors, and to kind of monitor the wellness of the student body. And like how Commissioner Nyandaro said, a lot of their grant funding comes with a lot of rules and regulations on what they can use that money for, and so it might not be towards paying for their students.
All right, I would like to make a motion to allocate Hope Services $10,000. Seconded by Speaker Fawn. The reason for this is, like I stated before, all of my points about federal grants as well as their impacts. Commissioner Argumento makes a good point about how some of their funding does go towards their student prevention ambassadors. I think that is an important program. This $10,000 allocation would help out with the pay for those ambassadors, as well as a little bit of pay for them to operate their surveys for campus. Commissioner Peng.
Just a point of clarification. In our binders, it's saying that their prevention ambassadors are not being fully funded by student fees. Did I get that information wrong, or?
Could you give the amount that they're being funded by student fees for?
It says 0% on page 137.
I guess I was thinking not only of their ambassadors, but as well as their student workers, which are fully funded by student fee dollars. Are there any other thoughts on the $10,000 motion? Commissioner Nyandaro?
From what I heard in the presentation, they mentioned that they used to get money from student affairs. I'm not quite sure if they're still getting it.
They do not.
Commissioner Naylor?
I would also like to allocate some money to fund those applied learning opportunities. However, I would be more comfortable with the lower number, possibly coming in around $8,000, just to consider that.
Commissioner Beatty.
I do think the 10,000 is a roughly good amount to cover those 2 applied learning positions. Over 15 weeks of work in a semester for 2 semesters, that'd put them around $11,000. So I think $10,000 is cutting it a little already. So I would prefer to keep it where we have it.
Commissioner Tijuana.
I would like to add a stipulation that the 10% of the salary to the assistant director doesn't goes into the 10,000 because that's also funded. So if we're just going for the applied learning, just add that stipulation to that.
Point of information, that would have to be a separate motion after this one is complete. Are there any other thoughts on the $10,000 motion? Commissioner Argumento.
Just to make sure that if we're doing it for the applied learning, it's 4 positions, if I look at that right. 2 of the undergrad and 2 of the grad program. So I think...
Do you have a question?
No, I'm just clarifying that it's 4 positions that would be funded.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period for the $10,000 amount.
The vote is now open. With 7 in favor, 3 against, and 0 abstentions, the motion carries.
Commissioner Tijuana, did you want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that the stipulation may be added that this $10,000 amount is only allocated to the applied learning programs and not to the assistant director's 10% salary.
Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Pang. Would you like to speak on that?
I think with only allocating $10,000, I think we should just focus on the applied learning as that benefits the students directly, the student workers. So yeah, just based on that.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on the stipulation, advisor?
I'm sorry, I may have not been paying too close of attention. Your stipulation is to do what?
I can clarify. The stipulation is to the $10,000 amount only be allocated towards the applied learning experiences and nothing else.
Lindsay makes a great point. I'm so proud of you, Lindsay. You're the best human being ever. I think based off of maybe where you're trying to go, I don't think this continues to remain a student service account. If it's designed to provide support for students to provide a service, then I would recommend you elevate it to an EOF account because the definition of what you're now stipulating from your funding is no longer going to fit in a student service as presented. If you're restricting certain things, then that's what an EOF fund is for, because the EOF is the most restrictive accounts we have. So I would encourage you to have that conversation of whether you transition it from a student service account to an EOF account. If your funding stipulation passes, my follow-up recommendation would be then you transition it into an EOF fund.
Point of information, is that just as simple as any motion that like what we've had? Okay. So if there's no more thoughts on Commissioner Tijuana's stipulation, we'll move into the voting period.
The voting now open. Now it's open. With 7 in favor, 1 against, and 2 abstentions, the motion carries.
I would like to motion that the Hope Services student fee account turns into an EOF account for future fiscal cycles. Seconded by Commissioner Naylor. The reason for that is, like Advisor Fonseca just stated, we have already created certain stipulations for very restricted use of this fund. We think that it should only be allocated towards student opportunities for the service that they're providing. So I think that is a good place for the account to be. Anybody else like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period to turn this account into an EOF fund.
The vote is now open. With 10 in favor, 0 against, and 0 abstentions, the motion carries. The next item is Student Outreach Services. Their request is for $58,086. They're located on tab R, or page 287.
Commissioner Wong.
I would like to motion $0.
Seconded by Vice President Nguyen. Would you like to speak on that?
Yes. Just looking at their presentation and how they utilize student fees, it doesn't make sense to me that we should be utilizing student fee dollars for this. Currently, as it stands, the work that CARE Team does, as well as SOS, is being mandated by the Kansas Board of Regents. So it's a state institutional policy that they have to follow at the state level. Why are we, as an institution, asking students to pay for something for the institution to remain in compliance? That does not make sense to me. The student support services budget is meant to give services to the students that the students would like to see, not something that is being mandated by the state that the state is asking the institution to do. So with that being said, I do not feel comfortable allocating them the full-time staff position with student fee dollars. In addition, in their presentation in their student fees packet, they did state that they could pull these funds from other resources and areas. So this would not necessarily create an extreme impact onto the student areas because they can get that funding from elsewhere. They can and will need to fill that position to remain within state compliancy.
Thank you. Are there any other thoughts on this motion?
Just, I guess, a point of clarification. I think they still could remain in compliance. Perhaps I'm going to be honest. I don't know what the compliance requirements are, but I can say that without this funding, this position, I don't know where else funding would come from for that. I think when they talked about when they pulled stuff from other areas, that was for the shortfall and not the position, if that makes sense. And so, from someone who looks at the student affairs budgets as a whole, if it's a decision made by this body to not fund this position, I believe the position, I don't know where else the funding would come from for that position.
Speaker Fawn.
Yeah, so I'm going to speak in negation of this motion. I think while with the position, while I understand the concerns surrounding it, I think it does help provide a service in a way where the caseload burden is reduced when we get those initial cases. While yes, some of those cases might be resolved within a week, within a few days or so, I think that I think there's still that valuable service that it provides where they're the first boots on the ground per se for these services. I'm not quite comfortable allocating $0 to this entity for those reasons. And while yes, it may be mandated by the Kansas Board of Regents, I still think the service and benefits that it provides with the improved response time outweighs that concern for me at least.
Commissioner Argumento.
Yes, I'll also be speaking in negation in this motion. As I mentioned before in the presentation, there are times where care team reports are made where they have to be addressed at that time and at that moment. We will just be delaying the care of our student body. We will be doing we will be negatively affecting the student body without filling this position. Just not having them there is just going to cause a more spiraling effect on our student body.
Commissioner Wong.
I also have concerns with SOS in terms of duplicity within CARE Team. CARE Team, I guess, as I understand it, oversees SOS as a department, and that team is made out of 17 members. 17 members. They are the ones who initially see the case. They are the ones who filter through the case. So my concern is not necessarily with the caseload, but what are we doing with student fee dollars? We are essentially right now funding state compliancy, in which I don't believe that it's the student's responsibility. I do believe wholeheartedly that's the institutional's responsibility, and the institution needs to be finding the dollars to fund it. If they can't find $58,000 to stay compliant with the state, then I don't really know what we are doing here.
Speak in affirmation of Commissioner Wong's motion. I also agree that when we look at some of our other items that we're cutting, we're really taking into account the largest student impact that, every dollar matters here. When we think about this line item, it is only funding a singular position. And like Commissioner Wong said, there are 17 members on the care team that work directly with this position for student outreach services. So I will stand in affirmation with Commissioner Wong. Are there any other thoughts on this $0 allocation? Or motion? Central office.
I just want to make sure that some of our language is a little more clear with some aspect. I think for reference, I think there is a difference between the care team and the student outreach and services office. SOS is the office that handles the case management of reports that are sent through the care report. The care team is an institutional-wide committee that addresses and processes. I think the word is like the expert. Not the word. The word would be the expertise of some of what students might be addressing or dealing with, and providing support to the case managers. So I think just putting that perspective out there that they are not one and the same. I think from maybe a good student government perspective could be like, there's the Senate, and then that's a bad example, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like, there's a difference between the two of those areas, and they're not one and the same. Well, yes, they support each other in the work that they're doing. They are standalone things. One is a committee, and one is an institutional department. Just putting that perspective out there.
I did also want to mention, when looking at some of the referrals to entities like counseling and prevention services, you see that this entity is not one of the highest on the list. You see other things like student health, the care team itself being the ones making those referrals rather than this entity. Any other thoughts? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period for the $0 motion.
The vote is open. With 5 in favor, 4 against, and 1 abstention, the motion fails.
Speaker Vaughn.
I move to allocate them at their full amount. Requested fiscal year 27 amount.
Seconded by Commissioner Argumento. Would you like to speak on that?
Yeah, I think this service provides kind of the first response to students. While they may not be the highest on the referral list for CAPS, I still think they provide a valuable service on campus where there's more staffing members to handle caseloads as opposed to the committee structure. While I can't speak on the care team and the overall structure for that, as I'm not completely familiar with that system, I still think that this would be a great resource to help support our students on campus. And while yes, it is that one position, I feel confident in that one position will impact the greater student body as well.
Would anybody else like to speak on this? Commissioner Wong.
I will continue to speak in negation of this allocation. To me, this is the same as asking a student who is paying tuition dollars for their major to also pay student fees to essentially create the major, execute the major. A student who comes here, this is a service that should already be provided by the institution, not through student fee dollars.
Commissioner Naylor.
I'm also going to speak in negation of this motion. I'm not comfortable allocating $0. However, I'm not comfortable allocating the full amount either. I think that this position should already be here. While I'm comfortable providing some support, I do not believe that it should be up to student fees to have to pay for something that is already permitted by the university to uphold the standards. So students are coming here and they shouldn't have to pay a salary for this position.
I also did want to note that looking at their financials, they are receiving transfers of $25,000 a year from somewhere else. Any other thoughts on the motion from Speaker Fawn? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period.
This vote is to fund the $58,086. The vote is now open. With 3 in favor, 5 against, and 2 abstentions, the motion fails.
Commissioner Wong.
I would like to motion a one-time fund of $58,086.
Do I have a second? Second by Vice President Nguyen. Would you like to speak on this?
Yes, I think this would be a compromise. We failed both motions of $0 allocations and the fiscal year 27 request. For me, this would be a compromise where they would have 1 year to be able to fund the position fully, and then they would have a year to figure out how to get the funds from other places to be able to get the time to be able to do so.
Any other thoughts on this? Commissioner Argumento?
I still feel like we can add the stipulation that if they aren't able to find the funds, that they can come back to this board and present again at the end of the next fiscal year and see if they weren't able to fund the funds, to present here again and be like, we still need the money to fund this position.
Speaker Fawn?
Just to clarify, so is this motion saying that we allocate them the full amount this fiscal year, and then at the next, when do they come up next in the student fee cycle? Because I'm kind of confused, like, the timeline-wise of things.
Give us 1 second, we'll look that up.
Commissioner Wong?
The reason why I did it like this as well is because I don't think funding them at a percentage would also be helpful to them. Then they would have to split fund the position, and we have seen from other student fee entities that that's really difficult for them to do, and so that would just place further burdens. This way they can at least get the time to figure it out.
To the question from Speaker Fawn, they would be considered a year A group, which means if everything proceeds as normal next year, they will be up for their regular review next year.
Before we go into any voting for this item, I would like to mention that by looking at their financials for both their expenditures and their revenue, including this entire amount being included for their student fees request for the revenue section, it looks like their total expenditures are $73,415, and their total revenue is $83,476 for the upcoming year, which leaves us with a discrepancy of $10,061 in the green for this entity for the upcoming year. So I would just like to let everyone know that for them to break even this year, like any student fee funded entity should, that number would be around $48,025.
I think the discrepancy, once again, is with the student or with the benefits, the health benefits, I believe that's entered as 0 in their spreadsheet. Is that accurate? And so once those are added for the position, it would even them out.
The benefits are in there as $8,000 in expenditures.
Let me just look really quick, sorry.
We still are, speakerphone.
So just to further clarify on the motion for the stipulation, so it'll allocate the full amount this year, and then would it stipulate that next year will also be 0 then?
Yes, that is my intent. A one-time allocation for 1 year, and then moving on forwards, they would be 0, unless they requested to come back.
Advisor Jensen, or Student Affairs.
I gotcha. So the fringe benefits are in there at 8, but then the employee health insurance, we didn't enter anything in intentionally because we don't know the new total. So those always are entered in as 0 until we know. So that would 0 them out.
Any other thoughts? Commissioner Argumento.
Yeah, so I have a question about this motion. So if it's a one-time $58,086, then but they're still up for their annual review this next fiscal year, correct? The central office.
That's correct.
But with the motion, underserved Commissioner Wong, I'm gonna mess this all up. They would not be allowed to come back for the next fiscal year to present a budget again?
Yes. And I say that because, again, I believe this is a responsibility of the institution, not of the students.
Advisor Fonseca.
I think let me throw some clarification that I think will help. Because the motion specifically highlighted one-time allocation, while it shows on the spreadsheet of the 58, it will actually zero out their student fee allocation, and the 58,000 will have to come from a different account to fund because one-time money is not built into the student fees budget. It's a way to think about it, which would result in a zeroed out student fee allocation, a transfer from our other fund that gives them one-time money, and then technically, because this is also true to share, it would be up to next year's student government if they get to come back or not. Because a zeroed out fund means that they're zeroed out.
Could you speak a little more about where those funds would come from, if not this budget?
Yeah, that's a great question. It would probably come from the student fees contingency. It'll probably come from the special projects account. The way that language is now, and not now, but has been written when we established the one-time allocation, is that it doesn't come from the student fees account, because when you put it into this budget, it stays there. The only way it comes off is if you add the language, similarly to what we did with the Child Development Center, of you implement a reduction to their budget in the next upcoming fiscal year, which was doing the same thing, but if you do it the second way, then it stays in this fund, and then in 2027, when we're back here in the spring of next year, it zeroes out their account because they wouldn't have any money left. But the way that the motion is currently outlined, it will require us to either take it from the student fees contingency or take it from our special projects account to fund it, since those are the only two funds that we have one-time money in. So I think my question that I would throw back to the commissioner, what is the intent of what you're trying to do? Is it to do A, where we trigger the reduction over the time, or is it B, zero them out and utilize the language you provided and it comes from a different account?
B.
Okay.
Are there any other thoughts on this motion? Commissioner Argumento. All right, seeing no others, we'll move into the voting period on the $58,086 motion with the stipulation that this is a one-time funding.
The vote is now open. Commissioner Andar, waiting for your vote. With 8 in favor, 0 against, and 2 abstentions, the motion carries. So we are moving on to student accommodations and testing. The request is for $10,107. They're located on tab S or page 300 of the student fees binder.
I would like to make a motion of $0, seconded by Commissioner Beatty. The reason for this is I don't feel as if student fee dollars are being spent for this entity. As a presenter stated, quote, "These funds are the cherry on top," and I don't think that should classify any specific student dollars that are going to any entity along. Oh, shoot, I forgot to make another motion. But I also did want to mention that this entity has $21,526.29 strictly of student fees in a reserve account that additionally, after this motion is voted on, I would like to see be swept out of their account. Would anybody else like to speak on this? Commissioner Beatty.
Yes, I agree with the $0 allocation. I believe it was mentioned yesterday that they'd been funded through student fees for around 3 to 4 years. So with that $21,000, it was anywhere from 53 to 71% of their total allocation from us as the Student Fees Commission was put in the reserves, which I think if they aren't utilizing their reserves, or if they aren't utilizing the money that the commission has allocated to them, then it's not the right choice to be funded through this commission.
Commissioner Wong.
I would like to speak in affirmation. My concern is that they have repeatedly told in the past Student Fees Commission that they would be utilizing these student dollars to go directly back to the students with accessibility pens. The fact that they have not, and the fact that they put together a student fees package that stated directly, if you add the 2 past student fee allocation dollars together, totals to around that amount, is absolutely astonishing. This student fee packet was completed in January, if I'm correct on the deadline, and the fiscal data that they compiled and put in the student fee package was completed in December. There is absolutely no way that they would have been able to spend $20,000 within a week's worth of time of one another. And that's $10,000 in their capital outlay in their fiscal data that they didn't even spend for fiscal year 26 allocation.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak on this? Seeing none, we'll be voting on the $0 motion.
The vote is open. With 7 in favor, 0 against, and 3 abstentions, the motion carries.
I would like to make an additional motion to add a stipulation onto the Office of Student Accommodations and Testing that we will sweep $21,526.29 from their account. Do I have a second? Second by Commissioner Wong. The reason for this is, like I stated before, within their packet, we did ask for a question. Sorry, Advisor Fonseca.
Can you give us 1 second to verify that that's the correct number currently in the reserves? Because keep in mind, the number that's in the big spreadsheet would have been pulled in July. It doesn't necessarily mean that today in March that's the same dollar amount.
This number is from their packet.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's 100%. So
Okay.
you can give us just 1 second to check it, and we'll get right back
Sounds
to you.
good.
As of today, they have $16,700.
Point of order. Is that strictly student fee dollars, or are those other RU dollars as well?
The only revenue they've received year to date in this fund is student fee dollars.
Scott Jensen.
Yeah, and again, just a clarification too, when you think about that amount, that's both their reserves, which they have spent into, as well as their allocations for this year. So it's not a reserve fund, if that makes sense. It's their total. They don't have a separate reserve fund and this fund. And so what I'm being told by the person who helps them with some of their budget is they're on track to actually spend all of those funds this year, for what it's worth. I'm not trying to dissuade you, but that fund is, again, both their allocations this year and money they carried forward from last year, just to clarify that.
All right, I would like to rescind my original motion. You second? Okay.
Point of order, what was that amount again?
16,700. And then I would just like to remind the commission that there's currently an executive order in place that prohibits the spending of reserves, and that was put in place earlier this week. So for reference, they can't spend that money, reserve money, unspent money that was carried forward until we release it after the process is over. So just do that thought there.
On that note, I'll be making a new motion of sweeping $16,700 from the Office of Student Accommodations and Testings account. Seconded by Commissioner Wong. Like I've stated before, within their packet, we asked them for the amount of their reserves. At the time that this question was answered, they stated that they carried forward $43,131.21 in RU, with $21,526.29 of that being strictly student fee dollars. The budget office and the central office have let us know, the amount currently in their reserves from the past student fee cycles, fully made up of student fees, is the $16,700 amount. And wanting to sweep this because it has not been utilized in the past couple years, and I think it is better allocated in different areas. Commissioner Argumento?
My only concern with this motion is the next time they will be presenting at student fees, or like Group A or B.
If we zero this number out, then they are not going to be presenting next year. Any other thoughts? Commissioner Wong?
I will also say that they receive more than $20,000 in emergency funds. If they have not been utilizing this, if they have only been utilizing realistically $4,000 from the student fees process, they can utilize the other $20,000 in emergency funds that they receive from other areas. For the past few fiscal years, they have, again, we have trusted them with student fee dollars, and they have not been utilizing them in the way that we have asked them to, nor have they been utilizing them in the way that they presented. And so to me, again, that is a level of trust and concern that I have with this budget.
Are there any other thoughts on this? Keep in mind, this motion is for the stipulation that all of their reserves will be swept. Seeing none, we will enter the voting period.
The vote is now open. Okay. With 5 in favor, 1 against, and 4 abstentions, the motion fails.
Would anyone like to make any other motion regarding this entity? Commissioner Argumento?
I motion that they are allowed to keep the $16,700 in reserves, with the stipulation that they must use all the reserves by the time they present again their next fiscal budget.
They will not be presenting next year because we've already voted on a $0 amount.
I motion that they use $16,700 in student fees, that they can use it.
There doesn't need to be a motion for that. All right, we will be taking a 10-minute recess until 11:42 a.m. Call this meeting back to order at 11:43 a.m. Commissioner Wong,
I would like to motion to reconsider
reconsider.
the previous motion.
Yes, the previous motion was to fully sweep the $16,700 from the Office of Student Accommodations and Testing's account. Would you like to speak on that? Oh, wait. Sorry. Seconded by Commissioner Naylor. Would you like to speak on that?
Yes, I would like to reconsider as I'd like to discuss this item again.
All right. Are there any thoughts on this?
Can I maybe clarify what's happening? So the motion to reconsider means you're bringing back another motion. There's not necessarily of why you want to bring it back up. It's just the motion has been made, a vote will be taken, and then if it passes, then the original motion comes back up for a rediscussion. So there's not actual discussion in this space relating to that. It's just questions about the motion itself, not about the actual topic. That will happen when you actually when the thing comes back up. So you'll go straight, unless there are questions, you'll go straight to a vote to do it.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, we'll move into the voting period for the reconsideration.
The vote is now open. With 7 in favor, 1 against, and 2 abstentions, the motion carried. So now the motion to sweep 16,700 is back on the floor.
All right, Commissioner Wong.
I wanted to discuss this item further because I want us to understand why we put this motion out. For 2 fiscal years, the Office of Student Accommodations and Testing have lied to this commission. They have lied to the 18,000 students that we all represent. They have lied to our constituency about what they will be spending these funds for and how they will be spending these funds. I don't take lies like that from a student fee entity very lightly. Additionally, let us also consider that OSAT is something that should be provided by the institution. Again, it is, I believe, state and federal policy to provide accommodations to students. Why, again, are we putting this on the backs of students for them to be able to come to an institution that can provide for their very basic needs? Going back to my first point, I don't see the need for them to keep that reserve. They have 20,000 in other reserves. In addition, they've only spent 4,000 in the past 2 years of our student fee allocations. That does not seem right. We voted, sorry, we is too many people. The past Finance Commission has voted on this line item because they were under the assumption, being told by the Office of Student Accommodations and Testing, that these dollars would go immediately back to the students and their need. What I see from their fiscal data and their student fees packet is that they have not spent that. Students rely on these dollars heavily. They should not be waiting on these dollars so that they can have the basic needs that they need to be able to succeed in classes.
Speaker Fawn.
I'm just putting it out there that I've been abstaining on all the motions related to OSAT as I use their services. So when you see one of the abstentions, I've been abstaining on everything related to it because for me it would be a conflict. So that's one of the abstentions.
Commissioner Pang.
I will also be abstaining from any motions regarding Office of Student Accommodations and Testing, as I am also a student of OSAT.
Commissioner Nandara.
My question is, was it clear in the last student fee session that they had lied to the finance committee? And if so, why did we fund them $9,195? And why would we want to take the 16,000 now? I mean, I understand they lied, but we might as well just let them use these funds since we're not paying, we're not giving them anything right now. And it has already been stated that they have plans to use them, and since we already gave them, so
Last year in the Finance Commission, the commission was not made aware that they had been keeping money from student fees in their reserves, whereas this year, in their packet, they specifically listed the exact amount that they had from student fees in the past kept in reserves that have not been spent. So that's the reason why last year we allocated them funds, is because under our impression, they were using those funds. They let us know that these funds had been used for certain things, whereas in reality, they were using other funds to make these purchases and keeping the student fees within their reserve accounts. So the reason for these sweeps is because of the fact that they were lying to us and holding our money for other purposes, just to have for a rainy day, whereas they told us that they were spending them over the years. Commissioner Naylor?
Point of clarification, this might be for Advisor Fonseca or the Budget Office. Where do these funds go if they were to be swept from their fund?
Since these are student fee dollars, they will be, they'll hold in this budget until it's ultimately adopted, and then they'll be transitioned into the contingency fund, unless they're spent in, let me try to explain that differently. If this motion passes, $16,700 will come out of their account. It will stay here in this process. This commission could reallocate those dollars to something if they wanted to. If not, when this budget closes, those dollars will transfer to the student fees contingency account.
Commissioner Wong?
I'd also like to point out that they've had the past 2 fiscal years as an opportunity to do something with the funds. They've had 2 chances. Why are we giving them a third? They've had opportunities. This is not a time to give another saving grace opportunity to this office that, 1, has lied to us, 2, has had 2 different chances and opportunities to utilize these funds. I do not feel comfortable giving them a third. A pattern shown in history is a marker for a pattern in the future. And I don't feel comfortable with allocating or allowing them to keep these reserves. They've shown that they would not use it, and they are not going to use it.
Commissioner Naylor?
I would also just like to speak in affirmation of that. I think that 2 chances is enough. While I was not a part of the past commissions, seeing this amount of money still left over from the past years is unsettling, and I do not believe that this office is being completely transparent with us. Therefore, the reserves, in my opinion, should be swept, because these funds can be used either to go towards other entities or go into the contingency funds. So in my opinion, I agree with them.
Any other considerations? Commissioner Nandaro?
So I feel like it will be a burden to our students if we do not fund them, then take away the little they have. I feel like the impact on the students will be significant.
So when you talk about impact, there has been no impact because they have not spent the funds. So they already do have an extra $20,000 in emergency fund and other reserves, along with the $16,000 in the student fee reserves. So even if we swept our money that we had given them in the past that they have not spent and has given no impact to students, they still have over $20,000 left in other reserves to use if they need. Seeing no other thoughts, we will move into the voting period.
The vote is now open. With 8 in favor, 0 against, and 2 abstentions, the motion carries. The next budget is campus recreation, but knowing that we only have about 6 minutes before we have to recess, and again, for a reminder, we published a schedule that says we have to be done by noon, so that means we have to adhere to that. I would probably recommend we just take an early recess and then start back again this afternoon when we return, because unless you are going to get it done in 6 minutes, which I don't think is going to happen, I'd recommend we pause here.
The Student Fees Commission will stand in recess for a little over 2 hours until 2 p.m.